One thing I think most of us can agree on when it comes to console exclusives, the Saturn was one heck of a system. Whether it was the arcade greats from Sega itself or the many third-party offerings that took advantage of the hardware, there is no shortage of greats to choose from. Things get a bit murky, however, when we start including games from other consoles. Ports, if you will. Because the Saturn was so unlike its contemporaries, moving software to it that wasn't specifically tailored to its strengths often resulted in less than stellar results. Even when the port was still playable and well done, it still had noticeable deficiencies when compared to the source material. Take a game like Wipeout for example. The Saturn conversion played great and even ran decently, but when you dropped it beside the original PlayStation release, it certainly didn't look as nice. The same could be said of games like Loaded, Battle Arena Toshinden, and Resident Evil. While I was investigating this list, I happened upon a game that never received a North American release, the PlayStation Classic, Destruction Derby. Japan and Europe did see the Saturn port in the second half of 1996, nearly a year after the original. It was developed by Perfect Entertainment, the same company that did the two Wipeout conversions and who ported over Manx TT Superbike for Sega. I sat down with Destruction Derby and really gave it a go, comparing it to the PlayStation version and ultimately looking for whether it's worth playing or not. I hope you guys enjoy my review of Destruction Derby for the Sega Saturn. The gameplay in Destruction Derby is the stuff every kid dreams of. The entire goal is to wreck other cars, rendering them unable to continue the contest. There is a physics and damage modeling system in place here that was rather unique at its release. There are 10 points of damage around your vehicle, with each one representing components like your engine, your tires, and your back end. These are color-coded to show damage. Green means you're in good shape. Yellow means you have taken some damage. Red means that part of the car is in very bad shape. Should you reach black, it means max damage has occurred. Of course, this means different things for different parts of the car. The back end of the car is far less important than your engine and tires. Pop that radiator and your car is done and it's game over. Your steering is also heavily affected by this damage. Bust up those areas and the car can be virtually uncontrollable. You'll want to do your best protecting the most vulnerable areas of the car, otherwise you won't be lasting very long. There are 4 main modes of play to choose from, with each mode using a point system to determine the winner. There is Destruction Derby, which is an arena free-for-all where the goal is to bash all of your adversaries, score points for spinning the other cars out, and be the last car running. Incapacitate the most cars for the best points. There is also Wreckin' Racing, which sets you loose on one of 5 tracks to see who can last the longest, score the most points, and reach the end. Stock car racing is largely the same as Wreckin' Racing, only this time the main focus of the point scoring is placement and who ultimately wins the race. Time Trials is the final mode and all about getting the fastest times for each track by yourself. There is also a duel mode for some of these options which allows you to go one-on-one against the computer. The 3 main modes all have practice options to improve your skills, which then get you ready for the championship mode. Here you will find 5 divisions to defeat. Work your way through each divisional season to see the end. There is also what the game calls multiplayer, but it's really just another single-player championship mode where players sign up and take turns to compete. Unlike the PlayStation original, there is no link cable support here for 2 players at once. Finally, there are 3 car choices to consider. Rookie is slow but easier to steer. Amateur is faster and more maneuverable, but a tad bit harder to control. The Pro option leans hard on power sliding, but is easily the fastest of the 3. All of these cars have a few different camera views to choose from while you race.
Second place. Nice move.
Compared to the PlayStation original, the Saturn version of Destruction Derby has some notable deficiencies. The texture work is poor, the transparent smoke is gone, the polygon draw distance is much closer, and the performance is lower. I would not call this port irredeemably terrible, but it most certainly isn't a good looking game. Side by side, you can see the PlayStation version is the clear winner in every single category. I was able to adjust fairly well to almost everything in the Saturn game, however. The performance isn't the best, but I also wouldn't call it so choppy it's unplayable. You even get used to the funky blob-like smoke effects and the rather low quality texture work. What I had the biggest issues with were the jarring polygon pop-in and the terrible collision detection. Every track, even the arena, has large sections of the scenery just dart in out of nowhere, really close to the car. This is distracting and really clobbers the sense of immersion. Geometry drawing in was nothing new in the 32-bit generation, but these tracks are very small and tight compared to most racing games of the day, so to see it at this level was rather surprising. I think I would have much rather have had a few less cars on the screen, so maybe the draw-in could have been tempered a bit better. The collision detection is also way off. There are times where you will drive completely through cars like they are ghosts or something. This can have a big impact on scoring situations, losing you a potential 180 or 360 because the game says you missed the target. It happens often enough to be irritating. As is, Destruction Derby joins the long list of unimpressive PlayStation ports that failed to live up to the original visually. There's uglier Saturn games, but this product was released 2 years into the life of the console, after Wipeout, so there's just no excuse for it. The sound in Destruction Derby is mostly pleasant. While there are individual tunes for each track, you'll mostly be concentrating on the cars bashing into one another, and the announcer telling you obvious things like avoid crashing into the walls. It has an 80s Euro dance vibe to it that many of you will enjoy. Here are a few samples just for you.
Those barriers, they'll only slow you down.
I'll be honest with you here, I have been very hard on this game in the past. My tolerance for ports like this is paper thin, and I don't think the developers or publishers gave the Saturn ports anywhere near the TLC they needed to be worth our time. The PlayStation version of Destruction Derby came out very shortly after the console's launch in the West, so it was an impressive tech demo for that hardware, and showed off the potential of polygon racing games. This made for a very compelling product that sold well, especially in Europe. It didn't play the best, and much of the gameplay was left up to chance as much as skill, but it was still incredibly fun to crash into other cars all the same. By the time the Saturn received it, 1996 was coming to a close, and there were a lot more racing games out there to choose from. On Saturn, it was not a tech demo at all, so the happenstance gameplay and lack of content stuck out like a sore thumb. We were essentially given a shadow of a much better version that itself was a bit long in the tooth and surpassed by better games. To make matters worse, Destruction Derby 2 was only a few short months away when this released on Saturn, further throwing its existence into obscurity. With that said, I still have to admit this game retains a bit of its appeal, largely thanks to crashing into things being so much fun. Despite how it looks in its late showing on the Saturn, there are many worse PlayStation ports out there that aren't nearly as replayable. I wouldn't begrudge anyone a lazy evening of driving around and crashing into everything moving on the screen. There is a therapeutic appeal to it, a stress reliever if you will, and the performance is just good enough to not mess that up. If you have a PlayStation, you'll want that version because there is no debate it's a better experience. But if you own a Saturn and enjoy your retro gaming there, this one certainly has its charms.
What a smash! Wow, what a race! Second place.
The magazines of the day were fairly consistent with their opinions of Saturn Destruction Derby. Some like Joypad in France spoke highly of it, saying it was really good and very fun to play. Total Saturn in the UK was another one that praised it and rated it very high. The more scathing reviews still hit the higher end of the scale, with Sega Saturn magazine noting all of its flaws, but still rating it close to 70%, far higher than it sounded like it deserved. I suppose at the end of the day there is a simple list of truths about the Saturn version of Destruction Derby. It most certainly is the lesser of the 32-bit releases, and it most certainly retains a bit of its original fun factor. Go in knowing that and you should have all the information you need to decide whether or not it's for you. Curiously, this game did have a planned North American release, with Sega doing the publishing. At some point they pulled out and no one stepped in to do the honors. Another interesting note about this game is that the sequel, Destruction Derby 2, was also supposed to come out for the Saturn. It made it fairly deep into development before the plug was pulled and it was cancelled. A playable build of the game exists, though it's pretty rough around the edges. The series went on to spawn more games for the PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and even the PlayStation 2 before it stopped. A number of them were quite decent and I recommend you take a look at them. As for the Saturn game here, it's another title that originated on the PlayStation that doesn't look or run as well, but it's far from worthless. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.